We're looking at Math Chapter 11, Geometry and Fraction Concepts. Today's focus is Lesson 11.6, Sorting Two-Dimensional Shapes. Go ahead and get your math workbook out and open to that lesson. You will need a green, red, and blue crayon today, along with your pencil. Let's start with the listen and draw today. It says make the shape with pattern blocks. Draw and color the blocks you used. I know you don't have pattern blocks at home, so I'm going to model that here for you now. The first one said we needed to use one block. Well, I used a red trapezoid block to cover it up. The next one said I had to use two blocks. I used a green triangle and a blue parallelogram. And the last one said to use 3 blocks. I used 3 triangles to cover that shape up. Then I used the same color crayons to color each of them in. Go ahead and take a moment to do that now. Take your time, be neat. If you need more time, push pause now. Let's look at today's I can statement. I can use the number of sides and angles to sort two-dimensional shapes. In the last few lessons, we learned about identifying sides and angles in two-dimensional shapes. This will help us sort those shapes today. Let's look at our model and draw. Which shapes match the rule? Well, the first example said we have the rule shapes with more than 3 sides. Well, I went a little bit beyond what their directions were. When I did each of these examples, I labeled the sides with the little dash mark so that I could prove that I can identify how many sides are in a shape. So I did the same thing with the second example, shapes with fewer than 5 angles. I identified all of the angles in the examples by making that little half circle. So here's what my examples look like. This way I don't forget, and when I go back and check the rule, it makes it very easy to circle the correct answers. Shapes with more than 3 sides, anything higher than 3, I circled. Shapes with fewer than 5 angles, anything lower than 5, I circled. Be careful, don't accidentally circle the 5-angled shape, that pentagon, because it's shapes with fewer than 5. It has to have less than 5. So as we go forward into the rest of the problem set, we're going to do that for each of the problems. If it's asking you about a rule about sides, we're going to use the little dash marks to show the number of sides. If it's asking about the rule with angles, we're going to use the little half circles to show where the angles are. So let's move on. Let's take a look at the share and show section. The directions say to circle the shapes that match the rule. Shapes with 5 sides. Well, just like I showed you in the last section, go ahead and use the little dash marks to label each of the sides and then write how many sides that shape has inside of it. So that when you're done, it should look just like this. Now I know how many sides there are, and any shape with 5 sides, I can put a circle on. Are you ready for the next one? This time we're looking for shapes with more than 3 angles. This time I need to label the angles for this problem. Go ahead, use your pencil, label all of the angles inside the shapes using that half circle, and then go ahead and write the number of angles inside the shape, and then it'll be much simpler to circle your answer. It should look like this. Now I know I have to find the shapes that have more than 3 angles, so anything higher than 3. Well, I have a quadrilateral, another quadrilateral, and a hexagon. All of these have more than 3 angles. Our next problem says shapes with fewer than 4 angles. So again, I'm labeling the angles in this problem. Go ahead and start labeling your angles. When you find out how many angles each shape has, write it in the center so you don't forget. And then you're looking to circle the shapes that have fewer than 4 angles. That should look like this. Now, when I'm looking for my answers, I look for anything less than 4. I have 3 triangles that all have 3 angles in each of them, and that is less than 4. The last one on this page says our rule is shapes with fewer than 5 sides. This time I'm labeling the sides using those little dash marks. Go ahead and label your sides, write the number inside the shape. Then we are looking for those that have fewer than 5 sides, less than 5. And that should look like this. Now I can circle the triangle because it has 3 sides. The square has 4 sides, and a triangle with 3 sides again. All of these are less or fewer than 5 sides. All right, we're ready for the On Your Own section. It says circle the shapes that match the rule. So just like the last problems that we practiced together. This time you're going to do it on your own. Carefully read each rule. It could be asking about sides or angles. So pay attention to that when you're doing your labeling. Go ahead, push pause when you're ready. And then when you're set and you've finished all 4 of those problems, hit play again so that you can check your answers. Push pause now. Okay, you should just have pushed play and you've finished the On Your Own section. Let's check your answers over. Double check that you did all of your labeling and make sure you have the correct shapes circled. I'll leave that up for a moment for you to check them over carefully. All right, last problem on this page says we have to draw 3 shapes that match the rule, circle them, then draw 2 shapes that do not match the rule. Her rule, not our ruler, is shapes with fewer than 5 angles. Okay, so what shapes have less than 5 angles? Well, we could draw a triangle because it only has 3 angles. Let's start with that. Go ahead and draw a triangle as one of our 3 shapes. And then put a circle around it because that was part of the directions. For any of the shapes that match the rule, we have to circle. All right, what other shapes have less than 5 angles? A rectangle. A rectangle only has 4 angles. Go ahead and draw a rectangle next. And then also put a circle around it because it matches the rule. Let's see, one more shape we need because we needed to draw 3 shapes, it said. Well, less than 5 angles, a square. A square is another type of quadrilateral that only has 4 angles. So draw a square for your last shape that matches the rule and put a circle around it. All right, we're not done yet. There was another direction. It says then draw 2 shapes that do not match the rule. So they cannot match the rule, and the rule was shapes with fewer than 5 angles. So now if I want to not match the rule, I need to draw 2 shapes that have 5 or more angles. Well, let's start with a 5-angled shape. Let's make a pentagon. Remember, we're not circling these because they don't match the rule. It's another shape that has more than 5 angles, or 5 or more. Let's also make a hexagon. And again, I did not circle it because it does not match the rule. All right, so I should have 3 shapes that match the rule, the shapes with fewer than 5 angles. I drew a triangle, a rectangle, and a quadrilateral and circled them all. And then my 2 shapes that do not match the rule are a pentagon, it has 5 angles, and a hexagon, it has 6 angles. Double check your drawings. If you need more time, push pause. All right, let's move on to the problem-solving section. It says sort the shapes. Use red to color the shapes with more than 4 sides. Use blue to color the shapes with fewer than 5 angles. Okay, so we definitely need a red and blue crayon, so make sure you have those ready. And then we're going to label the sides and the angles with our pencil first, just like we did for those earlier examples. And then write the number inside the middle. So for example, that first triangle, I'm going to put the dash marks on each of the sides. I'm going to use my half circles to also label the angles, and then I'm going to put a 3 in the middle of it. And then I'm going to do that for the rest of the shapes. After I've done that for all of my shapes, it'll be very easy to figure out which ones are red and which ones are blue. So go ahead and do that. Start labeling now, and then when you're ready, be careful again with your rules. It's red if it has more than 4 sides, so higher than 4. And it's blue if it has fewer than 5 angles, less than 5. Push pause now so that you can do all of your labeling and coloring, and then push play when you're ready to check your answers. All right, you should have just pushed play. Go ahead and check over your answers carefully. So there's only 3 shapes that were colored in red. I have 2 pentagons on the top and a hexagon on the bottom. It said we had to use red to color shapes with more than 4 sides. My 2 pentagons have 5 sides and my hexagon has 6. And then our blue rule was coloring shapes blue that have fewer than 5 angles, less than 5 angles. If you look at all of those blue shapes, they have either 3 or 4 angles in them. If you need more time or you need to make a correction, do that now. Let's take a look at our last problem. Draw each shape where it belongs in the chart. I bet you know by now what I'm going to have you do first to those shapes. Well, our chart says shapes with fewer than 5 sides and shapes with more than 4 sides. So we only need to label the sides this time. So go ahead, label the sides on each of your shapes and write the number in the middle of the shape. And then go ahead and sort them into the correct column. Take your time. All right, let's check over your answers. If you need more time, push pause. When you're ready, let's take a look. Got all my labeling. I wrote the number of sides inside each shape. And then underneath shapes with fewer than 5 sides, I have the square with 4 sides and the triangle with 3. Underneath shapes with more than 4 sides, I have the hexagon that had 6 sides and a pentagon that has 5. Check yours over carefully, and then you're all set. You're ready to do the homework on your own. I've been very impressed with your work in math, so keep it up. We only have a few more lessons before we're done with our entire math chapter.